Welcome to Truck That for May. We're here at the Melbourne Convention Centre for Megatrans. It's a global showcase of materials handling, of all forms of transport, for road, rail, sea and air. There's a whole heap of displays inside and we'll show you some of those later on. Truck ride vehicles inside on display. And on the way down to Melbourne we had Ben Maguire, the ATA CEO, do a trip, and we'll have an interview with him later on in the program. Back soon. One of the purposes of the truck ride industry vehicle is to attend industry events or have a passenger in the truck per month. So this week we've done actually both. We've got attendance at Megatrans, the truck's on display there as part of it, and we had Ben Maguire, the ATA CEO, come for a trip. Now Ben got to listen to me for about 10 hours, you won't get stuck with that, but we've asked him a number of questions and here's his reply. G'day, we're here with Ben Maguire, the CEO of the ATA. And we're at the Silverlight parking bay in Wagga Wagga. Ben's just come along for a trip in the truck ride industry vehicle. So we're going to talk to him about a couple of things, including rest areas and where the ATA is going. G'day Ben, how are you, mate?
G'day Rod, good. Yeah, it's been a good day on the road.
Yes, yeah. So what's your first thoughts in the idea of the truck ride vehicle, and thank you for coming along for a trip?
No, it's been really good to be on the road with you. I think the truck's a great asset. I mean, any road safety message is important, mate, so well done. It's a real credit to you.
Thank you. Yeah. So we've discussed green reflector bays. We're in one now. This one's been marked up. Yeah. We've discussed a serious lack of rest areas and where you and I can work together to do something to improve the lot of drivers on the road. We've spoken about how perhaps the ATA has been a bit sort of away from drivers and whether we can work together to do something to do that. You said that you're a supporter of the idea of the Truck That Australia Drivers Club, and it's simply to get more blokes involved because we don't have enough doing things now. So where do you think we can go with rest areas?
Oh, look, I think there's a lot of work to do in rest areas. It's pretty crazy in 2018 where we acknowledge the road freight task is going to double, and yet everywhere we drove today we're seeing potential rest areas being closed. We're worried about fatigue and how drivers are managing their fatigue, and yet we're not giving people a sensible and safe place to stop and rest.
We're speaking there specifically of the bypass at Trawilga. I spoke to RMS when they started doing that job. There were 7 different places we could have had. Every single one of them was torn up. And whilst the green reflectors are a good interim measure, unless we can get them across Australia and get them recognised until we get enough rest areas, you are saying that we're leaving blokes that don't have anywhere to stop. We don't recognise the need for shade. We don't recognise the need that there is not enough parking bays, and the government are not doing enough now. So we need NHVR support, we've asked them. We're certainly looking for ATA support, and we need to find a way to bring that down from the top. How do we get the government to listen, and how do we get them to act?
Well, we've already raised this with Michael McCormick, and he's genuinely interested, and he sees that it's also linked to an industry-wide problem of attracting new people to the industry. You know, if we're going to ask people to come and sign up and have a career in an industry that you love and I love and lots of people do, we're going to need to be smarter about how we care for these people when they come and work in trucking.
And of course, one of the things we spoke about coming down was a fine of $1,200 and 4 points for crossing a white line at a safety cam. How do you justify that in road safety? You can't. And then if some young bloke finds out, well, that's what the fines are for crossing a white line, are they going to come? No. So together, you and I and the NHVR, let's see if we can get a couple of little things done, because I think that's what we need. We need to show the drivers something to their benefit, that something can be done, because they're very frustrated and they don't see anything changing. If we can offer a couple of little things, maybe we'll get their support, and the more of them we get involved, the more chance we are to get things done. So yes, there's a big thing to do, but it's getting that started and then getting really things on the ground.
Yeah, look, it is, and I think everyone who's watching, my message to them is we've got to work on the small things like rest areas. We've also got to acknowledge and point out that the productivity in this industry is not being enhanced. So the investment, whether it's in safety or new vehicles or drivers or wages or whatever it is not being encouraged. So the work that the ATA are doing right now is measuring that and measuring the lack of productivity gains that we've got, and taking that to the senior politicians and the regulators and say, you know what, there's a big piece of work here to do.
The ATA has pushed for the ATSB to be involved in major accident investigation. One of the things we've discussed is a possible podcast or looking at accident investigation, so that a driver travelling along can listen to something, hear what happened, hear all the little things that contributed to that, and maybe think about what he's doing and perhaps act a little bit safer. So that leads into, where is the ATA going? You've been there how long now?
About 14 months.
14 months. Yeah. So it's been a big change for you. You've been involved with transport before in earlier parts of your life.
Yeah.
Where is the ATA going to go under your leadership now?
Well, I certainly think that all of the industry, whether it's drivers, owners, decision makers, we have a shared goal. And so I've got a lot of mates who drive trucks full time, they own trucks. I own a heavy vehicle myself. I complete a written work diary. It frustrates me also. And everyone that I talk to has this goal that we need to improve things. And so I would like to share with people watching and yourself and everyone that's on the road, the ATA, when we're out advocating for these changes, it's not about just the big end of town. This is not what we're about. We are also about looking after everybody that's on the road, because without solving these problems, the industry's in big trouble.
So we make a plan to work together. Ben's coming through to Melbourne for the rest of the trip, and he's going to fill out our form about those that ride in the truck with comments, and we hope then to work together towards the future and see things improve.
Good on you, Rod. Thank you very much.
Thanks, mate. Thanks
Cheers.
for coming along.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Here at Megatrans, we've done a couple of interviews. One is with Paul Redder. Now, Paul is the CEO of the National Transport Commission. He is a previous passenger in the TIV, and we've asked him a couple of things, probably a little bit outside of driving on the road league, but we've asked him about the future of fatigue. It's something that we're all really passionate about, and there's a hell of a lot of things going on. Do we get input into it? Do we get good results out of it? But Paul is the man at the top of the tree, and we've asked him for his thoughts on where we're going with fatigue. So wanted to ask you three questions. The first one is specifically about fatigue. Where do you see it going? There's a lot of regulation, there's a lot of angst amongst drivers about the fact that it's forced upon us by those who don't have to live by it. We are looking into the future with a lot of technology, but where does the NTC see that going? How is it going to pan out in your eyes?
Rod, thanks for the question. It's a good one. I think fatigue is recognised both by industry and by government as a key issue that we need to address. Indeed, not just in the road sector, but across all transport sectors, fatigue's a big issue. I'd have to say, though, that I don't think we know enough about fatigue. We don't know the fundamental causes. We don't know the underpinning externalities that affect drivers, because they all are affected differently by various factors, either before they start their shift or during their shift, that results in somebody feeling sleepy, tired, or exhibiting those signs that you and I would call this driver is fatigued. Having said that, about a year and a half ago, we took some action after we spoke with government ministers to actually put in place a research project to actually get to the bottom of and help us understand the causes of fatigue and what we can do to mitigate those signs of fatigue or distraction that start to occur after somebody's been driving for a period of time. We're also investigating what technologies will help us identify a driver's performance that might indicate that he's distracted or fatigued, and or both, as he progresses along a journey. And with the right combination of management intervention and that technology, perhaps we can prevent some of the crashes that occur that we think are caused by fatigue. Now, you asked me where does that lead? So we'll get that report by the end of 2018. I hope in March of next year to take it to senior officials and then to ministers in May of 2019 with a way forward in terms of what we have discovered in terms of some of the key factors that might influence the way in which we change our fatigue laws as we review the National Heavy Vehicle Law. As you know, the Heavy Vehicle National Law was established back in 2012. It was commenced officially around about early 2014. We're hoping that next week ministers will agree that we will undertake, NTC, lead a review involving industry and governments, regulators, police, to look at all aspects of the law, but in particular one of those issues that, as you identify, industry's keen on, is to look at what we can do in terms of fatigue laws to make sure that they're fit for purpose, but at the same time deliver the outcomes the government wants, and indeed the industry wants, which is that we don't have people being forced to drive for long periods of time without an ability to stop, or at least to recognise when they should pull over and have a break. I'd have to say we're still after more drivers to assist us in the current phase of research, and there's time yet for drivers who do, let's say, about 30 hours a week. That can be long distance, it can be routine domestic type travel, but if they're available, and there will be some recompense for those drivers who volunteer, we would be very grateful for their assistance. And I can suggest that if they're keen to do that, they might contact the National Transport Commission, and we will put them in contact with the Alertness CRC to seek, an ability to get them to get them. Yeah. The broader question of what is it revealing, well, look, I think it's a bit too early for me to be definitive. I think what I'm hoping to see is that we'll get a better understanding of what the impacts of various shifts are, the impacts of people who might be used to driving at night and all of a sudden find themselves in a day shift, and vice versa. I think they're the sort of issues that really are quite practical in terms of what are the impacts on a driver of various types of shifts, and what might that lead to is, I hope, a greater understanding of what we need to look out for in terms of how much sleep, proper sleep, might be required by a driver, under what circumstances is that sleep effective, and what we can do to, I guess, identify those signs of fatigue early and put in place, as a result, policies which, at the end of the day, mean it's safer for everyone who's using the road.
So then the last question is on rest areas, and you and I met when we did this trip, and I came to you with a list of things, and one of those was that we didn't have current and suitable design guidelines for heavy vehicle rest areas. I want to thank you for instituting that, and that's currently underway. I've been able to contribute. I've certainly asked that others get the chance to contribute as well, and all of this technology is marvellous, but if it tells you to stop and there's nowhere to stop, what do you do? So we have spoken to NHVR. We know they're not responsible, but we've asked for their support to the future. We've got the green reflectors as the informal ways. I'm still trying to get that national, and yet we don't have enough rest areas. And I want to ask you, even though it's not your area of responsibility, how can you see that we can drive that message that we need them, that we get them built, and that we then do allow drivers to safely manage their fatigue in the right place and with the right facilities?
It's a really good question, Rod. Look, I think from an industry perspective, we've seen in recent months an increase in focus by all state and territory governments on road safety. Some of the stats that we're seeing as a result of the last 12 months or so have shown that our road safety strategy and our targets that we were aiming to achieve are proving very difficult to get there. And indeed, there's been a bit of a reversal of trend in some areas. Now, what we need to do, I think, is leverage on that renewed interest, or increased interest, I should say, by governments, and actually make the case that you can have the best technology, the best management systems in a vehicle and in a company to manage fatigue. But at the end of the day, you've also got to have areas that you can stop at safely that allow a driver, when the signs of fatigue become evident, to pull over and to have a decent rest, ideally in a place which offers decent amenity for that appropriate amount of time. There is nothing worse, in my view, than a driver who knows he needs to stop, but he can't find anywhere safe to do so. And we need to think about, and I think industry has a role to play here in identifying, looking at what we've got now, what would be the high priority areas that we need to invest in for future locations, and then to complement that with your excellent green reflector program to give us the best chance of allowing drivers to pull off safely when they need to.
What I'm proposing is, if we can look at a highway, we look at what's there, we've got those facilities available. If we find there's a gap, and then we overlay that with fatigue accident or accident investigation, and we find that there has been an incidence there, then that's where we need to look. And I'm hoping that I can follow that through and come up with something simple that we can take to government, because you've got to give them something that's easy to achieve and that is achievable before you expect them to do anything.
Absolutely, and I agree 100% that what we need is data and research that underpins the views of industry in terms of where we need to put additional rest areas, and that could be a combination of, as you said, data on crashes that we know about, areas that are missing rest areas, but also I think looking at the volumes of traffic that are moving down some of these roads to get some idea of what the demand is versus the supply.
So we'll have your support to push for that?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Paul.
Cheers.
How are you seeing the show?
Oh, look, it's been fantastic. There's been some good insight to some new technology out there. There's some good interest in our partnership with Seeing Machine and the Guardian product, and it's been really great to see a diverse range of drivers through to technology industry people.
So as a driver, I'm aware of what this does and I'm aware of where it's going. We're sort of concerned, I suppose, how it interacts with us. Does it help us? Does it hinder us? Does it actually put us in the spotlight when things go wrong? As a driver, what can you tell us about the machine and what it's really aimed at doing? Is it aimed to help us, and what are your views on where that affects the driver himself?
To be honest, any fatigue management technology is designed to protect people's lives. The drivers are the most important part as far as operating that machinery. And from a company owner, and I've got staff that I put these particular bits of equipment in, it's around protecting my staff and our best interest for their families. I mean, I know them well. Like any technology, there's two sides. There's an operational benefit from having technology in there, and there's a balance between how it affects the driver and then the perception on the market that you're actually going after for business. But at the end of the day, it's how you actually introduce it into the business and how you support it. If it's a big stick, then it's going to become a hindrance to your business. If it's an educated, well-delivered product, then it's going to only be beneficial for both parties.
So where are you seeing others? There's obviously a number of other technologies trying to do similar things. It even gone, they had the hat at one stage that went through your brainwave and that sort of thing. Do you see this as the best available at the moment?
Look, as a distributor, I've seen a lot of different product in my times. The fact that it's actually specifically driven on event-based only, so it's not always recording, so you can't use that data for an ongoing quick dial in to see what the guy's doing. It's event-based driven only. So I think it is the most accurate capturing of fatigue events on the market specifically for the driver behaviour side. There's a lot about compliance, a lot about the regulatory component on the truck being ready for use, but the management of supporting the drivers, we've all got lives, we've got families, things, you've got a baby at home that's crying and you don't sleep very well, you've got to be able to address that environment as well.
All right, mate, well, thank you very much for your time, and I hope the show goes well for you. Our next interview is with Peter Anderson, the CEO of the Victorian Trucking Association. We've asked him about his views on the show, the ministerial breakfast that was held yesterday morning, and also we've put him on the spot about congestion in Melbourne. The population's growing, more vehicles, how are we going to get in and out? Mate, you had the ministerial breakfast this morning, a big event to launch the show. What's your view on that and what did it specifically look at?
This isn't a truck show. This is about what transport logistics is all about. It's about supply chain. It's about those people that contribute to the economy of Australia and how they do so in the industries that we represent. The breakfast this morning was a ministerial launch of Megatrans, and it was well attended. It was a tremendous occasion, a tremendous event. We had the minister speak. We had Sal Petrosito launch the safe management system for chain of responsibility, which there again a great initiative by the NHVR, showing their true colours and reinforcing their support for the industry by putting forward useful and practical tools for us to be able to work within our operations to ensure that chain of responsibility is well and truly enforced, is well and truly followed by each operator. So we had a panel, and the panel was a very good panel. We had Karen Anderson from the Port of Melbourne, we had Michael Kilgariff from the Australian Logistics Council, and Tony McMillan from Transport Industry Council. And of course, those three representatives, we're talking about transport and logistics, not just about their own industry sector, which is road, rail and sea, but also about how we can better interact, how we can better harmonise, and how we can get stronger intermodal connectivity between the different modes of transport.
So you rate that a success, so that's really good to see as a start. Now the role of the VTA, so what are you doing specifically currently with the VTA? Where do you see Melbourne going? There's a lot of talk about the election, whether we have a north-south or an east-west. There's all that in the mix for the future. Where's the VTA going with that?
Well, the Victorian Transport Association, in its name itself, it is an acronym VTA, specifically looks at the Victorian transport issues. However, it also takes on a national perspective in lots of different ways, and especially in industrial relations. However, we're very fortunate here in Victoria to have a booming economy. We have a population growth exceeding expectations, 120,000 people a year, economy's ahead of target, we're leading the nation in economic growth. So we're very lucky to have that environment around us. Of course, that means the government is also flush with funds. So we're also getting the benefits from that being their focus on infrastructure. And a Labor government who's not just focused on education and health is a blessing, because they're looking at infrastructure as well, and of course they've got the cash to do something about it. So we're getting North East Link, the Westgate Tunnel, the Rail Crossing Authority, Melbourne Metro rail tunnels, all done at the same time, plus all the major roads are getting upgraded to ensure that we can cope with the volume of traffic that we expect to have in this state over the next 10 years. Keeping in mind that we don't want these projects to be the last of the projects. We want more again. So the VTA endorses every major road project, even if it is the East-West Link, that I'm sure will come in once the Liberal Party comes into power in Victoria.
So that leads us to the third question, and that is, as a driver that's in Melbourne every week, and we're all looking forward to the ring road being completed and having that all done, but yet, as you said there, the population's growing, and I believe Melbourne's about to overtake Sydney in population from what I read the other day.
In a few years.
Yeah, with all of those new families going to the outskirts of Melbourne, they're all going to have to go to work in and out, and we're going to have more trucks. So is the road going to be at capacity when it's opened, and where do we go to deal with that for the future?
Interesting question, because it is a very diverse question. There's no doubt that we're going to be under pressure. We haven't had a major road built in Victoria for over 10 years. So now we're playing catch up. We won't build ourselves out of congestion though, but we will try and attempt to improve the situation that we have. So those major road projects that we have in place in Victoria will be good for us in the near future, but we still have an issue with the fact that we're growing so quickly. So we have to continue to plan. Now there is an outer ring road on the drawing board outside of the M80, so that perhaps will be sped up once we understand how quickly we are growing. Melbourne's geographical area is very broad and getting broader because of the nature of the topography. You know, we're very flat. Yes. So it's easy to build roads, it's easy to build bridges and sewer systems and water systems and connect those accordingly. But we need to actually understand how we can connect rail, road and sea in a better way we do. And of course the trucks that do travel our roads travel to specific points for specific reasons based around the type of freight that they have. There's over 40 sectors of the road freight industry, and they all have different supply chains, all have different demands, and all those supply chains don't necessarily connect. So there again, we have to try and cater for all those different demands as best we can in the systems we've got. But of course, it's also about trying to get the community to understand what we're all about. And that in itself is a task that the VTA is taking on, and taking on wholeheartedly. It's about community amenity. It's about taking responsibility, and it's about leading the industry in terms of what we are and what we should be seen as by the general public and the community around us. We're an equal stakeholder, not just in the roads, but in the community. We support the standard of living that everybody seems to enjoy, or we all enjoy, and what's important about that is that we do it with passion and commitment, and knowing that we're doing some good for the country.
And would you agree we need perhaps a little bit more recognition for what we contribute to those people's way of lives in what we do?
Well, what we need to do is change the conversation away from those negative things such as a road accident. And of course, any road accident with a truck is a big accident. Trucks are bigger, they'll always come off better, so to speak, and we've had some horrible accidents. But the thing is that that isn't what the community should be focusing on. It's all the good things that we do along the way. It's the fact that the people behind the wheel are skilled, are conscientious, and very aware of their obligations towards safety. And that doesn't come across enough.
We certainly don't go to work to have those accidents, and we're acquiring all this new technology, and there's a whole heap more of it to come. So I look forward to the VTA pushing that, and mate, thanks for coming along.
Thank you very much, Rod. It's great to speak to you again.
Cheers, mate.
Thank you.
We're here at Megatrans in Melbourne with Roger Sack from Tremanco. Roger, what's your aim at being at this show?
Well, Rod, there's two aims at being at the show. One is to meet our customers so they can ask us the easy questions or the hard questions. There's a mixture of both. We like the easy ones, of course. And the other aim to be here is to show our customers new things and innovations, some of which you've been helping us develop with the truck industry vehicle. Couldn't have done it without your help, and the support of Rod Pillen as well, because it's his truck. But you've been bump mapping the human new highways now for 13 years, 2005, and we've been able to, well, here we are talking about the A-double project, which we've been heavily involved in as well. And of course, the other reason here is that onboard scales are going through what's called a type approval process. As you know well, that to get higher mass limits and work under the IOP and PBS schemes, you need to have a type approved, what they call IVU, in-vehicle unit, which is a GPS system in simple terms, right? Now onboard scales have to be type approved as well, and that means that they'll have some measure of legality, and they will absolutely be used for evidency in a court of law. So you'll be able to rely on a type approved set of onboard scales, particularly if they're checked weight.
So Roger's been a big supporter of the truck since the start. We've got both the onboard scales and then the INSCOM road monitoring software behind it. We've found some enormous bumps on bits of road. We're still trying to get the road authorities to actually act on that and fix the roads for us, but it's an important part. You're on the new Inventors program some time ago, that's good, yes. But what we have to do now is get the road authorities to get out and fix the roads for us, mate.
Well, I did a presentation here today, and I'm not sure if we're showing, no, we haven't shown any graphs yet on the screen, but we will shortly, and that was presented to Vic Roads, that was presented to Main Roads Department, RMS, we've had Transport Certification Australia here, Bitter know about it, Austroads know about it, and I think it's getting very close to the stage where they're going to believe us.
Let's hope, mate. Thank you very much for your support and for giving us your time here today.
Mate, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, so this is the coming to the end of Truck That for May. We've had a good time here at the show, and I've got to say to you, the first bloke that actually came up to me here at the show said he wanted to shake my hand, and I said, what's that? He said that he'd been out in the road, he was tired, he was looking for somewhere to stop, and some poor bug had actually pinched the first 3 reflectors, but he found the 2 and the 1, and he found a safe place to stop. And he was really thankful. Met a lot of people here, had a lot of discussion. The green reflectors came up at the ATA convention, I've been told. Were highly spoken of there, so we're pushing really hard to get that as a national program. And the aim of coming here is to put the truck in front of people, to contact those, to work on the next TIV, to put the truck out and get comment. We just had a gentleman here from America runs a truck over there. Lovely show Peter built, gave us a photo. But mate, he was very impressed with the truck and what it does, and he sort of said, what's it for? And I said, to put a positive view out there for our industry, because it's something that doesn't happen often enough. The gentleman we spoke to at Seeing Machines, he said, look, I said, how do you think the drivers sit with this? And I said, from my point of view, we certainly don't get recognised for the job that we do. And he said, I 100% agree with you. It is something that we've got to do more about. So now we want you to share our videos. We want you to join the Truck That Australia Drivers Club, and we want your support to make this more helpful to you and to make your life on the road easier and safer. Till next time, safe travelling.